Good evening. My name is Anthony Smith, Executive Director of Lincoln Park Coast Cultural District. Welcome to Lincoln Park Coast Conversations. As we emerge from the global pandemic, we are all thinking about our connectedness, particularly our connection to each other and to place. That's why our topic for this conversation is the Green Miracle Mile, sustainable creative placemaking, and our new normal. We're engaging residents in the imagining of the connectedness of two historical neighborhoods. Lincoln Park, which sits at the south end of Broad Street and is at the gateway of downtown Newark, and our adjacent neighborhood, the historical Clinton Hill neighborhood. My co-moderator for this evening is Khaatim Sherrer-El, Executive Director of Clinton Hill Action, a nonprofit community development corporation working to revitalize Newark's Clinton Hill neighborhood. Kateem brings more than 22 years of experience leading place-based initiatives, managing collaboratives, and building organizational capacity. Since its founding in 2019, Kateem has raised nearly $2 million to support redevelopment projects in Clinton Hill, including efforts to address blight in the neighborhood, develop quality, affordable housing, and increase access to healthy foods for families in need. Kateem is principal consultant and owner of a nonprofit management consulting firm, Result Driven Consulting. His clients include United Way, WK Kellogg Foundation, Brick Education Network, programs for parents, and lists. He most recently led Marriage Rajay's Baraka's My Brother's Keepers initiative, focusing on mentoring, violence reduction, and living wages for young men of color. He is a graduate of Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. While there, he became the first college student and youngest member ever elected to the Atlanta Board of Education. Welcome, Kateem.
Thank you so much for having me, Anthony. I really appreciate being a part of these Coast Conversations, and shout out to my friends at Lincoln Park. I tell you, since I've been on the scene as a community development leader, Anthony, you have welcomed me with open arms. You have been the big brother in this work that I've been searching for, and I'm so excited to do this collaborative project, bringing our two neighborhoods together.
Thank you, Kateem. This project is so exciting for me, understanding the development that has already taken place downtown Newark and having a community like Lincoln Park and Clinton Hill, and thinking about this as the Miracle Green Mile is just so amazing. Gives us so much opportunity as we're looking, and we'll talk about this later, at the master planning process and other things that's happening so that we can ensure that we are attracting buppies to bedrooms and getting more excitement in our neighborhoods and in the streets. But Kateem, before we get started, we must acknowledge and share some community wellness information. Recently, I had a pleasure of co-moderating a conversation with the City of Newark's Department of Health and Partners in Health. This year, the Biden administration distributed over 250 million at-home test kits. Yet, most people, including my family, didn't really know how to use it. In the interest of building a whole healthy community, it is important that we share this demo on how to use those at-home test kits. Let's take a look.
Hi, my name is Keisha, and I'm going to explain when and how to use a COVID-19 self-test. If you have COVID-19 symptoms or think you've been exposed to someone with COVID-19, you should take a COVID-19 test to determine if you have been infected. Your family, friends, and community depend on you to take steps to determine if you are infected with SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19. Using a self-test or home or at-home test can be a quick way to get results. You can use a self-test almost anywhere as long as you follow the instructions provided with the test. Some self-tests are available without a prescription and can be purchased at a pharmacy or other retail store. Be sure to check the expiration date before you purchase the kit. If you have questions about testing, there are lots of people who can help you, including doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and health departments. Here are some tips for using COVID-19 self-tests. Follow instructions for storing the test until you are ready to use it. Some tests require a flat surface and shouldn't be used in direct sunlight. When you are ready to use the test, check the package contents and expiration date again to ensure the test has not expired. Do not open test contents until you are ready to start the testing process, and don't use expired or damaged tests. Disinfect or clean the surface where you will complete the test and wash your hands. Follow the instructions to collect your sample, perform the test, and wait for the result. Remember to keep the nose swab in the nose for the appropriate time needed to collect a sample. Carefully following the test instructions when collecting a sample, performing the test, and timing the results are critical for accurate test results. Once finished, throw away the test contents as described in the testing instructions. Don't reuse test kit contents. Disinfect or clean the surfaces where you've completed the test and wash your hands. Refer to the How to Interpret a Self-Test video for what to do once you have the test result. Remember, even if you are fully vaccinated, CDC recommends that you get a COVID-19 test if you have COVID-19 symptoms or think you've been exposed to someone with COVID-19. Thanks for doing your part to help prevent the spread of COVID-19 in your community. Keep in mind, testing is one part of preventing the spread of COVID-19, and getting vaccinated is another important step to protect yourself and your community. For more information, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus.
Great, thanks. So if you prefer to get tested at a testing site, see the website on the screen now. Take out your phones and use a camera to scan the QR code to find the testing site. Now, if you're getting vaxxed, and now it's time to get a boost your immune system before we all get together outside once again. Oh, let me repeat that again. And getting vaxxed, now it's time to get your boost because you're going back outside and you want to increase your immune system. And we want to be back together. Again, take your phone out again and scan the QR code to find the vaccination location. Okay, now, Kateem, it's time to get into our topic today.
Yes, we are here to talk about the Miracle Green Mile that we are creating between Lincoln Park and Clinton Hill. Anthony, we are stars. I don't know if you remember, but this all got started when you called and said that Inside the Blueprint wanted to do a story on Lincoln Park, and you wanted to expand that to include the sister relationship between our two neighborhoods. And so that conversation all got taped on a segment of Inside the Blueprint entitled An Education in Emerging Green Community Development Solutions. I think we have a segment to feature here today.
Absolutely, yes.
Let's take a look.
Imagine a self-sustaining community based on green initiatives, resident involvement, and rich history. That's what you'll find in Newark, New Jersey.
So welcome to Lincoln Park, the historical Lincoln Park. This is a wonderful community. As you can see, the bones of this community with all the historical mansions. When I think about Lincoln Park historically was a rich neighborhood with all the historical mansions around it, but juxtaposed behind these mansions were what they call the Black Red Light District, where all the major jazz clubs are located here, along with Savoy Records. But as time went on, things started to change with industrialization and things of that sort. But we created our organization, Lincoln Park Coast Cultural District, really to address the needs and the issue and to help to really restore this ecosystem here in Lincoln Park.
Since the beginning, Lincoln Park Coast Cultural District wanted to connect its neighborhood to the South Ward's historic Clinton Hill, creating a green Miracle Mile corridor connecting the twin communities.
I'm so excited about the Green Mile and its work to connect the Lincoln Park neighborhood with the Clinton Hill neighborhood. And it's a commitment to sustainability. It's a commitment to say to Newark residents who move into our downtown core as urbanites that when you get ready to start a family and you want a front porch and a backyard, that this historic community of Clinton Hill is here for you as a great place to live, to work, pray, and raise a family. Clinton Hill Community Action was started back in 2019 in response to everything that we were hearing in the community. Folks were saying that they were tired of seeing the trash. Our neighborhood was hit the hardest by the foreclosure crisis. We knew we needed to do something about housing. And, it just came to a head that Clinton Hill Community Action needed to be to tap one of the neighborhood's greatest resources, and that's its people.
Well, Lincoln Park is not only a sustainable community development organization, they are a very small, lean team. And so my role as the lead agency for all of their arts and culture initiatives. So you're talking about hundreds of years of creativity that is now giving birth to the next generation of creatives here in the city of Newark, and we're just beginning.
Their community outreach and engaged partners have made it possible to create an ecosystem that's enjoyable, but more importantly, environmentally sustainable.
When we look at sustainable communities as a way to employ our local residents, we want to train them up to be experts in green infrastructure. And so the vision of the Southward Environmental Alliance is to let people know that you can be a part of what your community looks like, and you have a right to have clean air and access to sustainable amenities as you live in your city.
And all the work that we're doing here in Lincoln Park, you cannot do it without having partners. We have legacy partners that have been part of this project. One of them is PSCNG. They've worked with us from day one when we started working on our LEED certified housing. They have all these jobs to make sure that Newarkers are employed. And so they're just a true partner. You want to have the residents totally engaged, and it's not just Lincoln Park's idea, it's our idea together about what we're doing in this community.
To learn more about the Lincoln Park Coast Cultural District, visit their website at lpccd.org or watch this segment again at InsideTheBlueprint.com.
So now we've heard a little bit about how this conversation got started. Anthony, I have to ask you for your autograph, my brother, because you were having this conversation about sustainable community development before it was cool, before there was an inside blueprint. And now it's all coming together in this partnership between Lincoln Park and Clinton Hill and reimagining what this Miracle Green Mile could look like. And so I just want to take a few minutes and talk a little bit about what is sort of the Green Miracle Mile. We know for us, today is all about starting a conversation with the community so that we can define it for ourselves. But we want to look at a couple of examples from a few of our sister cities. So we all know Chicago, the Magnificent Mile. I have spent a lot of money running up and down this commercial corridor. It's a vibrant, bustling area, upscale shops, luxe fashion outlets, cool restaurants, and posh hotels. But this is a destination in Chicago to visit. If you want to check out the neo-Gothic Tribune Tower, the terracotta Wrigley Building, the skyscraper, the 100-story John Hancock Center, all of that is situated right here on the Magnificent Mile in Chicago. Next city. Up next, we're looking at New York. So New York City has the Museum Mile. It's one of the most diverse art viewing opportunities on any given mile in the country. There are a number of world-class museums, cultural institutions, all along the Upper East Side's stretch of Fifth Avenue, and that is their Museum Mile. Also in New York is Long Island, in the hamlet of Manhasset. They're known as the Miracle Mile there. It's another prominent shopping district on the North Shore of Long Island, Nassau County. There are a number of eateries. Most significantly is the history behind the Long Island Miracle Mile. It was established back in 1950. Um, Coral Gables, I saw them on our screen. They're coming up. Let's take a look at Coral Gables down in Florida, their signature street. And this one is a real good connection to our conversation with our guest today, because here we get to see how urban planning and design really fed into creating what is known as their Miracle Mile. And really, the exciting thing to look out for is the new streetscape master plan that they're coming up with that creates these kind of nodes that we see here on our screen, where folks can gather, hit up little small shops all along a walking corridor. But Florida is also known for the Wynwood. And Anthony, you want to talk about this creative placemaking
Sure.
spot?
Yeah, thank you, Kateem. This actually amazing area is near and dear to my heart because it really mirrors Lincoln Park for me. Through creative placemaking lens or through placekeeping lens, one might look towards Miami's Wynwood district. Known for its many colorful murals, Wynwood is one of the city's most happening districts, like Lincoln Park and Clinton Hill, right? Wynwood Walls is an outdoor museum showcasing large-scale works by some of the world's best-known street artists. The surrounding streets have converted warehouses, housing craft breweries, and funky art galleries. A hip young crowd frequents this neighborhood with chic clothing boutiques, stylish bistros, and late night bars. Doesn't that sound like Lincoln Park and Clinton Hill? I just can imagine. Look at the mural projects that's in Clinton Hill bleeding down into Lincoln Park. We already have the bones for this. I could just imagine having this outdoor gallery with shops and restaurants to go to and just places to hang out. You know,
Yeah. So
you know,
we've
at
got
Lincoln,
Chicago,
I'm sorry,
we've
go
got
ahead.
Oh, no, no, I'll say we got Chicago, we got New York City, we got Long Island, Coral Gables, and now we just took a look at Miami's Wynwood neighborhood. So one stake in the ground that I know Anthony and I want to sort of make is when we think about our Miracle Mile in Newark, we're thinking about the economic corridor that connects our two neighborhoods along Clinton Avenue, from the lower part of Clinton Avenue next to Lincoln Park at 76 Clinton Avenue, all the way up Clinton Avenue, going towards Clinton Place, getting us near 694 Clinton Avenue. That's the space and area that we want to engage the community to help us reimagine as Newark's first Miracle Green Mile.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's exciting, you know, at Lincoln Park, we call this cluster-based economic development, which is uniquely aligned with Lincoln Park's mission and vision of building a sustainable arts district. In sum, local economic development model, this local economic development model demands effective specialization and respecialization driven by innovation, entrepreneurship, and strong institutions. To us, this means building up Lincoln Park and Clinton Hill communities so that the varying socioeconomic backgrounds can strive. Specifically, Black and Brown folks, African Americans, Latinos, we really, really want to build up this community to be inclusive of Black and Brown and Latino people. So actually, I think it's time to introduce our guest, Kateem.
Just come off mute there. So first guest is no stranger to everybody who cares about Newark. There's none other than Dr. Christopher Watson, the city's chief planning officer. In his capacity as chief planning officer, Chris effectuates his team's prudent planning practices for the projects that achieves the administration's 5 Newark Forward pillars. His portfolio is responsible for operations in the units of city zoning, planning, and its board of commission. He's a decade-old Newark resident of the city's West Ward. Chris was born in Guyana, South America, and received his undergraduate degree in environmental studies from the University of Guyana. He gained his master's degree in urban affairs and planning with honors from Hunter College at CUNY. Chris is the 2018 recipient of the President's Award for Excellence in Teaching from Queens College, where he's an adjunct professor in urban studies. teaching courses on urban poverty and affluence, graduate research methods, researching New York City, and urban planning and city government. Chris recently served as vice president of the board of directors for the United Vailsburg Service Organization, and we are excited to have Chris as a guest today, but as a partner in this work long term.
Absolutely. And, let's bring on our other guest, Roger A. Smith. Roger, I'm so excited to be working with Roger because in 2008, I was working with Roger early on when we were at doing this work when he was with Hillier. Roger believes that cities can be transformed through the power of design. Roger is an office leader for Gensler Cities and Urban Design and Mixed Use and Rental Centers practice areas. Roger received the 2020 AIA New Jersey Distinguished Service Award, which recognized individuals who demonstrate exceptional leadership and have made significant contributions to architecture profession. As a principal and design director in Gensler's Morristown office, his collaborative style and unwavering pursuit of excellence has not only resulted in award-winning buildings, but he has also developed a cadre of talented design professionals. He shares his love for architect with students at the Hilliard College of Architect and Design at NJIT, as well as the Michael Graves College at King University, and the Weitzman School of Architect at the University of Pennsylvania, where he received his Master's of Architect. Roger also serves as a member of Gensler's Global Race and Diversity Committee and is co-chair of the Gensler Research Institute Center for Research on Equity and the Built Environment. Welcome, Roger.
All right, so now that we have our guests, Dr. Watson, we want to talk to you first. We want to...
The team, always Chris.
Always Chris, always Chris, my friend. So Chris, we want to try to wrap our brains around all these plans, right? Whether it's the South Broad Street redevelopment plan, the Lincoln Park neighborhood redevelopment plan, and now, as many of us know, you are leading the city's master planning process, Newark 360. Can you help us make sense of like all these plans and talk to us a little bit about Newark 360?
Thanks so much, Kateem, for the introduction. And Anthony, thanks as always for including me in these type of conversations. I'm delighted to be here as friends of these great men on this panel tonight and as the city planner. I think, Kateem, I would like to start off more with a macro conversation about what master planning is and then narrow it more focused onto those neighborhoods plan that you allude to. And I'll use this moment to shamelessly promote Newark 360 with some slides. Every opportunity we get to talk about our upcoming master plan, I want to take it. So if you could indulge me for a few minutes, I'll just share some quick slides I put together just to give people a more macro understanding as to what planning is and the power actually of planning. Let me see, file. Sorry. But can you guys see my screen properly?
Yes.
All right, great. So what is Newark 360? Newark 360 is really the title we have given so far to the planning effort for Newark. And what is master planning? Well, master planning is really a community-driven process in which we, as a city, we meet with neighbors, colleagues, stakeholders to talk about the city's future, right? It's this type of collective vision that really articulate goals and strategies using planning and planning elements, planning tools, we call them, as to how you can advance those goals and for our neighborhoods. And in the end, it produces this blueprint as to the physical development of the city, right? Along with regulations as to how your city grows. So it is also something that is statutory in nature in New Jersey. The municipal land use law asks that for cities our size, 10,000, population of 10,000 or more, that you create this, plan to demonstrate to them how you intend your city to grow.
Chris,
in Newark, yes.
Just one interruption. I want to know, can you go full screen on your presentation?
Full screen. Help me with this. I'm seeing it full screen. No, you're not seeing full screen.
Well, I'm actually seeing all your slides. Are you doing one slide by one, or
Are you seeing a slide now? I'm seeing slide by slides.
just keep? You can just keep on.
All right. You know, I think I'll do this. Are you seeing any slides now?
Not yet.
The slides all disappeared. Okay. All right. I think after 2 years, we should have learned better how to use this type of technology.
It happens every day, right?
Every day we start over from scratch, you know? Like, are you seeing a single slide now?
Not yet.
Oh my God.
I think you stopped sharing.
I think
so
you
may
stopped
have
sharing.
to-
You have to share again.
No, I am sharing. It says sharing here. Oh. Oh my gosh. All right. Do you think we need slides? Because I can go through the cadence of this conversation without slides. What do you think?
You're good.
With slides or without?
No, you're good. Just keep on talking.
All right. All right. So with Newark 360, right, we ask ourselves, you know, how do we develop a plan for a city and what really should be principles around this process? And, you know, just listening to Mayor Baraka and how he's so eloquent in articulating a future, and just thinking about the past 2 years and this health pandemic, and just thinking about global warming and how real it is. You know, we have enveloped Newark 360 around these guiding principles of health, equity, and resilience. I like to say we're planning for her. Some easy acronym to remember, you know. So in Newark, we want to ensure that this process really encompasses a city that is healthy, a city that is equitable, and we plan for resilience. And, you know, where did this all come from? You know, in his first administration, Mayor Baraka really articulated a community-centered growth for Newark, around Newark Forward, right? And this was really a blueprint for economic growth and opportunity here in Newark. And it was really, really foundation around a city that is safe, a city that is empowered, a collaborative city, an equitable city, and a city that is educated. So we really want to use this opportunity to create a planning process that goes hand in hand with community engagement process, and making sure that there's one that engages and listens to all Newarkers, and to incorporate this collected and shared vision into a plan, and making sure that we work in collaboration with not only our city departments and elected officials, but stakeholders and neighborhood organizations and community leaders, so we can create a plan that creates a lasting mark on Newark, you know, something we can really see indelibly our presence, and then focus on our neighborhoods, right? And the rising challenges around housing affordability and social and racial inequality and environmental vulnerability, and just the physical health of our city, right? And again, using Newark Forward as, you know, this vision that helps us articulate the vision. And so as planners, we have certain limitations. So we call them planning elements or planning tools. So with Newark 360, we want to think about these planning elements, like 8 planning elements. So we want to think of the city through the lens of parks and open spaces, through sustainability and the environment, through utilities and critical infrastructure, through, you know, transportation, circulation, through economic development, through land use, through urban design, through housing, and, you know, through historic preservation and cultural assets. So it's really thinking big about our city, but then in a sense, focusing again, as I said, to those neighborhoods, and really and truly, what are the things we need to ensure that are in place, those things being land use regulations, to bring about ideas like a miracle mind. So throughout this process, you know, we work with advisors, and the advisors are grouped into the city itself and our offices. You know, we have a robust steering committee, which is an excellent great trust of advisors and trusted subject matter experts. You know, we have the city's established Equitable Growth Commission that's going to ensure that, yes, we are upholding those equitable standards, and community leaders and influentials like yourself who kind of do this type of ground truthing, this groundwork, right? And then the stakeholders, and then we are establishing outreach advisory committee, but more importantly, our advisors will be Newarkers. So it's really and truly a large conversation and a large, honest conversation about how we ensure Newark's growth is a representation of our collective vision. So there's master planning and what we're doing with Newark 360. But then to your other question, Kateem, is about neighborhood planning. So some of those neighborhood plans you allude to is how we get hyper focus on the neighborhoods. So whilst we have a collective vision for the city, that collective vision is really an amalgamation of parts. So what is that part? Is listening to Lincoln Park individually and saying, hey, what are the assets here? What are some of the challenges here? But what are some of really the strengths here? And how we can really use assets and strengths to see how we can reverse challenges, right? And bring to fore neighborhoods that provide for better life courses for our residents, our neighbors, our friends, colleagues, and so forth. So it's one, looking at the city as a whole, and then looking at it in an amalgamation of its parts. So it all comes together uniquely, because I think what really drives these type of processes is listening, right? I like to say a prudent planner is one who listens, because really and truly what you bring to bear is a translation of what you heard. Neighbors know what they want. The ordinary resident knows exactly what they want. And I think if we ask the right questions, we will solicit the type of response that informs us. And that's how we can use this tool to move Newark forward stronger, I would say. And Kateem, I will come off my soapbox and wait for questions to be more nuanced about this conversation.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation. I know we have another guest that we also want to hear from.
Here we go. Sorry, I was on mute. So our next guest is Roger Smith from Gensler. Roger, welcome.
Thank you.
So Roger, tell us more about, I know you have some slides with you and you're going to talk about, I was so fascinated about, I guess it's called the 15-Minute City. I forget the exact name of it, but it was such a great presentation to talk about how neighborhoods connect. And I thought it was most appropriate when we're talking about Clinton Hill and Lincoln Park.
Yes, just trying to see how I can share my screen here. And I'm not seeing the screen share. So let's see.
It may be the arrow at the bottom under your picture, well, under your picture that I see.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that for some reason. I really would like to share that. Let's see.
Do you see your arrow pointing up?
I'm not seeing it. Let's just see here. I've got this, but I don't have that arrow. Does someone need to give me permissions to share?
Let's see. I think you have permission. Let me see.
Okay, let's just try this, maybe. Okay, let's see if this works. See my
There we
screen
go.
now?
Yeah,
All
we
right,
can see it
great.
now.
That's fantastic. A little worried there. So I'm so pleased to be here to talk with all of you and to share conversations. We really are in an amazing moment, and you all know it. You're on the ground working hard to make things happen, and the city is really evolving, as you know, and it's because of this kind of conversation and engaging the community and making this about the community and really designing for people. We really have control over the future that is upon us. We all know that sustainability is a critical part of our future as a planet, and of course, that's important. But it's interesting because in the last 2 years, of course, we've also seen that racial, social, and economic inequalities have been amplified. But in a really interesting way, while it's shown how difficult things are for people, it also presents an opportunity to really engage all of us to really change and evolve the city. So that's what I want to talk a little bit about today. At Gensler, we've been thinking about this for quite some time, and after the pandemic, we thought about it in a new form, and thought about how the city is going to evolve and how we can engage communities to make change. But what I really want to focus on today is this sort of third element, which is rethinking the 20-minute neighborhood. Because, as Chris was saying, it's really, any city is only good as its neighborhood. Neighborhoods. It really is about the neighborhood. That's the core and strength of its people, and the city itself. So, in the end, we've been through a lot. And we really have been presented with an opportunity to revisit and rethink how our neighborhoods work and how we can build neighborhoods for us. Obviously the pandemic hit us hard. Social protests after the death of George Floyd and so many others really was a call to action for all of us, not only being aware of the inequities that exist that we need to repair and change. It really offers an opportunity to re-engage and really build a future that we want, a future based on equity. I wanted to talk about the 20-minute neighborhood because it's an interesting concept. It's been around for a while, but it's really about creating walkable neighborhoods. It's about sort of that half-mile radius around which is a comfortable walk. You can get around easily. And you walk from one end of the neighborhood to the next, and you've walked 20 minutes. So that's sort of the idea of the 20-minute neighborhood, really to create walkable, vibrant neighborhoods with shops and open spaces for everyone to enjoy. It's not a new concept. It's been around for a long time. And cities like Paris and Melbourne and London, Barcelona, they've all been actively engaged in the sort of traditional approach to the 20-minute city, which is to build walkable neighborhoods with access to shops and things like that. Portland has been looking at how to manage planning and how to manage growth through by creating density in a very confined area. In places like Houston, it's all about managing growth and creating opportunity in neighborhoods that's up against sprawl. In Detroit, it's about finding opportunities to repopulated struggling neighborhoods. But it's been around for a long time. What's different about what we've been thinking about is the 20-minute neighborhood, really looking at it through the lens of equity. What does that really mean? What does it mean to look at the city through this lens? We really have to think differently. Yes, we can focus on walkability and access to shops and open space, which is really important. But many communities don't have all of these assets that you see around this wheel. And that's a problem. I think many neighborhoods don't have this. They're not readily available. And we need to do the things that we can do to make sure everyone has all of these assets available to them as we think about the growth of our cities and our neighborhoods. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is the idea of a neighborhood retail base. Creating this new connection between your
So Anthony, it looks like we lost Roger right as he was getting into the whole
The meat of
definition.
it, right? I was like, okay.
I'm sitting back ready to take notes, pen in hand. But we heard a lot from Chris that, really got me thinking. I mean, every time, he talks about the city's master planning process, I get more and more excited about, what that can mean for the city. I mean, we've been doing master plans. Chris can tell us for how long, but they ain't new, right? And
No.
I've always wondered, how do you go through this sort of robust engagement process, come out of it with some kind of living document that, helps to, as the title of the plan suggests, guide the development of the city. And so, Chris, when you talked about, this being a process to engage residents and stakeholders, getting into the needs of neighborhoods and understanding core issues, housing, economic development, what would you say, Chris, that, residents can look to after the plan is done in terms of how this is going to make a difference in their lives? Like what should they look for?
Great question, Kateem. And you know what? I like to take that question from the front end and not the back end, right? Because as you and I know, planning is a long game, right? It's a big visioning session about the future. And sometimes when you ask people to think about the future in terms of a decade, it becomes disjointed in a sense, because you have to hold on to these ideas and see a cadence towards, it's built out. So first and foremost is, I think, what is unique about Newark 360 is that we really want to use it as an education process. Often in cities like Newark, planning hasn't been part of the vernacular of our population. We haven't been using it in terms of the power that it really has, right? So it's first about teaching people not what is planning, but really and truly this tool and how powerful this tool is. And then show them, then ask people to be reflective. Think about when you were a young adult and in a particular neighborhood, this particular product wasn't there. It could have been a park, an apartment building. Kateem, just you and Anthony, I guess you guys are more Newarkers than I would ever be. Think about when the Haynes building sat, unoccupied for 3 decades. And today we can go into that building and there are a multiple of uses. There's Whole Foods on the ground floor, Cool Vines where you can get a good cocktail any day of the week. There was once a pet store. There's a IT store upstairs. You can go. There's a work share rooms. There's Express Newark. So you bring new forms to this. It's like having people to hold on to these ideas to say, this is what planning is about for your neighborhood. And just to, steal Roger's slide about that, that 10-minute walk. And it was beautiful how you talk about equity in the neighborhood and you show those assets that you need, right? Is Wi-Fi ubiquitous? Do you have access to those last leg micro transportation options? Can I jump off of a bus and then jump on a scooter? And so I don't have to walk 5 blocks home. How do we quicken that journey? Or if I would like to walk, how do we get rid of this hard infrastructure, these crates that in a sense cage our city, but then make sure that, it has this type of boutique milieu to it where I can stop at the cobbler, pick up my dry cleaning, get some cheese because tonight I'm making pasta. That type of built environment where it's not a dream, it's something that, we're just using best practices. So it's, in a sense, is to get people excited about their lives today and tomorrow and for its future. So, and planning can do that, right? Because what it really does, it does with a firmness. It says on this particular land parcel, this is the product that will come to bear, and that would be the product that can be like the grocery store or the retail store, right? So it's us collectively saying, when we look at Upper Clinton Hill and we look at Lincoln Park and we're thinking about this Miracle Mile, what are the opportunities that exist in between? The vacancy, absolutely. Right? What is the vacancy in between? And how do we use planning and more so the planning element of maybe of design to bring to bear something that is resplendent, something that is representative of our collective vision, right? What do we do with those 5 parcels that it's just empty there. Should it be a grocery store? Should it be a new park? What should it be? And I think that should be informed through this rich collective dialogue.
Yeah, I'm going to say Trader Joe's.
Allow him to continue with his beautiful slides.
Welcome back, Roger.
Thank you.
We were
glad to be back.
Yeah, Chris, teed you up perfectly, and we were waiting because we were anticipating going around this 20-minute neighborhood.
Yeah, well, that's great. Let's hope it doesn't do that again. But we know that the pandemic hit everybody hard, right? Everybody was hit hard. And there were a lot of losses, and they weren't just in the retail sector. There were real lives lost. But we really do need to focus on the retail base, and in particular, our Black and brown businesses. You can see here, 41% of Black-owned businesses were impacted and were lost as a part of this. 32% were in the Latinx community were affected, and 17% among white businesses. So minority communities were hit hard, and we all know that. So we really have to have a focus on this. And I think we need to work with our communities. We need to work with the public sector, with developers and creatives to really try to understand how we can build on these kinds of assets and make things happen. We also need to have employment centers. I mean, that's a super critical part of any opportunity that exists. And I think, we know that, for example, many people were able to work from home, but we also know a lot of folks weren't able to do that. And there are a lot of reasons for that. And we can even look at the jobs lost for low-income communities in the immediate aftermath. There were more lost than what you're seeing here in this statistic, but this was a statistic shortly after the pandemic hit. And low-income families were hit hard. But we need to think about this differently. So what can we do? I mean, we can think about, our central business districts are important to every city. And we're not talking about decentralizing them in any way. But if you can think about ways, and we can think creatively about ways of engaging the neighborhoods, maybe a business that has its headquarters in downtown has a satellite office in a neighborhood. What would that mean for the vitality and jobs within an individual community? I mean, those are opportunities for us. There are also potentially larger issues, regional issues that could be a focus. But the idea that you might be able to get the investment that you have in the downtown, make that happen in the neighborhood through satellite offices, that could be an interesting thing to think about. This is a project in the Ford Foundation, the Ford that was a development that they pulled out of the center city into the neighborhoods to revitalize it and to rethink the potential of those cities. I mean, I think there's also an opportunity to use through adaptive reuse to use these buildings that have a sort of a cultural and historic memory for communities and make them something vital by creating job centers in these kinds of spaces. These are just ideas that are potential in not only developing a neighborhood, but connecting neighborhoods. Really important stuff. Also, this idea, and Chris spoke to this a bit, I really think the idea of the internet as a public utility is kind of almost an essential in the 21st century, because in the 21st century, your job vitality relies on your access to the internet. Access to education, which is more and more going this way, is important. Job training, the idea of having access, is absolutely critical. So we should be thinking about the internet really as a social issue, as an issue that connects people because of the need for it. It's an integral part of everything we do, and it should be thought about that way. I mean, there are places like Chattanooga, for example, that early on built a fiber network, a fiber optic network. And guess what? Newark has one as well. Newark had the foresight to really invest years ago to provide this kind of access. So how do we do that? How do we make that happen so more and more people have affordable access to internet across the city? We think that's going to be super important and will add to the equity formula. We all know that affordable housing is important, and that housing should not only be affordable, but there should be a mix of housing units so that all folks can have access. We should be thinking about access to home ownership, renting to own, other opportunities like that can really revitalize the community and get a real mix of people in those communities. I think that's really important. Again, thinking about how we can do that. I'm going to click through a couple of these more quickly since we lost a bit of time. Healthcare facilities. How can we bring healthcare into the mix, making those really centers of neighborhoods? We think that's a really important thing to think about. But it's up to the health of any community is absolutely vital, and not to have access, easy access, affordable access to healthcare and wellness is something we want to make sure we provide. This is an example of a project in South Carolina we worked on, which was where the actual healthcare center became a real centerpiece of the community itself. And that's possible. Just needs investment and imagination in terms of how we begin to think this through. This was an interesting, when it comes to health and wellness, this idea, this was a photograph one of my colleagues in Detroit in Chicago took a photograph of, where during the pandemic, this entrepreneur decided she needed to bring her classes out into the street. So it was a really new way of engaging. People saw this happening, and her business went up threefold because she brought it out into the street. And what could be healthier than doing an exercise routine out in the fresh air? Micro-mobility, exploring different ways of having different mobility options, really critical to our neighborhoods. How do we strengthen that? How do we make it better so that people have access? Transit-oriented neighborhoods obviously are a part of that mix, but it's also the bicycle and the scooter, which Newark has been actively engaged in promoting. The importance of the public realm, our parks, that green mile you're talking about, not only green from a sustainability standpoint, but creating active, vibrant outdoor spaces where people can come and live and work and play, share their art and their passions for that. This is a project that we did in working on in Detroit, where we're starting to think about new ways of connecting the public realm, creating spaces where spaces don't exist, to create a new way of inhabiting our neighborhoods. But we shouldn't be thinking of the neighborhood just as a 20-minute neighborhood. We should be thinking about it as a collection of neighborhoods. And you two are doing just the kind of things that make these kinds of connections work. It may not be possible for every community to have every one of these assets located in their neighborhood, but you could have 5 of them, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them, and maybe the adjacent neighborhood has the other stuff you need. So working together, communities can really, really come together and build a stronger future. And we think that's super important. It's important to understand the neighborhood. What are the stresses that the neighborhood is having? How can we help correct those stresses and improve them? So it's important to sort of know the data points that influence the state of the neighborhood. And ultimately, I think in the end, we want to support and expand minority-owned businesses. That really is the heart of the neighborhood and will help every neighborhood thrive. This is a statistic that I found really sad in a way, that 40% of the receipts of Black-owned businesses are concentrated in just 30 counties across the country. That's just about 1% of those counties. And we really have to change that. And we change that, I think, by encouraging businesses, minorities businesses in every one of our communities across this country. And none of that, of course, can happen without the voice of the community, because in order to get it right, you've got to have community participation. And as Chris was saying, you've got to listen, you've got to hear. And then we actually, as planners and architects and developers and community activists, all are essentially tools for that vision and that aspiration of community members. So that's an absolutely critical part of that. So again, the 20-minute city is an interesting way of creating a walkable, vibrant neighborhood, but more importantly, seeing it through the lens of equity is the most important aspect of it, we think.
Thank you, Roger. You really touched on a lot of key things. I see Kateem taking notes. I'm taking notes. Like, we get ready.
I was almost using it as a checklist. I was like, we have that. We need this.
Yeah.
We want to work on that.
Who's got this? Yeah, it's so important to work together. And it's great to see you guys doing this. And I know it's just not just you two. You're stars, no doubt about that. But it's everybody, and you know it. It's the community coming together to really make a difference.
Well, I think it's the community and the residents and the stakeholders that are at the heartbeat of this, and the whole process that you're talking about, and Chris is talking about, being very inclusive,
absolutely,
of the community, listening and reacting to what you can react to make sure that when this 10-year plan happens, they embrace the plan because it's our plan, because we had a voice, and it's like giving a voice to the voiceless. You know, I know Chris is coming back on also, but one of I was looking at on our Facebook questions was, even if the elements of the 20-minute plan are in place, how can it be equitable if one neighborhood has a Bravo or /C-Town supermarket and another has a Whole Foods? The elements to improve neighborhoods, he said, he understands the elements to improve neighborhoods, but he's struggling with the use of the term equity. Where does that equity come in when it comes to our neighborhoods? Because Lincoln Park was started because of the lack of equity, the lack of wealth in our community, and needing to advocate to make sure that it was dispersed, equitable across the board.
You know, Anthony, I'd like to take a stab at this, right? Because I like to say equity could be everything and nothing at the same time, right? But if we hold it in our minds in terms of everything, or we can see that equity is not exactly parity, right? But it's saying that not every neighborhood needs a Whole Foods, but every neighborhood needs a supermarket. Every neighborhood needs access to fresh food. So whether it's Bravo or it's Whole Foods, is what does the content of this place contain? Fresh fruits, vegetables, meats, dairy products, the things we need for a healthier lifestyle. So if we might want to think that Bravo may not be the type of supermarket that has the products like Whole Foods, then we need to put pressure on that chain itself, on that particular but it's getting it to the neighborhoods. It said there are supermarkets here, and it doesn't need to be Whole Foods, right? It could be Trader Joe's, it could be something else, but what we know, it's equitable in its presence. What we need to work on is parity in us being able to access it. And I think
that's it.
If we look at Roger's slides, you see that dynamic come together. I mean, it's a great observation by Warren, right? It's a really great observation. But if we think about it, if we don't get it there, then the neighborhood is not getting equity in this product. Now we know it's there. We need to work on parity so that what is there is on an equal plane of all of our neighborhoods. And then we have to think about, when we think about Newark or any city in general, it really has these rich cultural nodes and enclaves, right? So you might find a particular product more prevalent in a particular neighborhood because culturally it's what people are consuming as opposed to something else. If I would like green mangoes, I'm not running to Whole Foods. I'm running to Bravo because they actually have green mangoes there for the particular meal I would like to cook, right? So it's even on that particular level, like we have to think about it in what equity means in that terms. Like, do we need another Branch Brook Park in Clinton Hill? Really, we don't. But we really need a more accessible public infrastructure in terms of parks and public spaces. And that could take on a presence of 2 lots, 4 lots, because we know these are more neighborhood oriented people. People are aging in place there. So even the physical form takes on a different presence. So if it's not there, it's not equitable. So the idea is to get it there. That is what really gets you to equity. Get it there.
Absolutely. I think access, you said it early on, access is the most critical part of this, that everybody has access to the things they need and the things that they want. And I think in some ways we have to encourage our partners who are investing in communities, whether they're, a grocery store or any other business, to bring the right business in for the right reasons. And then, and understand what the community really needs. And I think it's a great opportunity for entrepreneurship, for Black-owned businesses to come in and say, you know what, this is what I think they need, and I'm going to create a small shop that may become a much bigger shop that has the kinds of groceries and the kind of products that that community needs. And that really is what creates an authentic neighborhood, and that makes neighborhoods thrive. And I think there's a lot of support, there's a lot of partnership that has to happen to make all of these things work, and it may be a little bit of pressure to bear as well.
Roger, I agree with you and Chris, but the one thing that really is sticking with is about parity, right? So the parity thing is because I think that Newark is a cultural mosaic, and we have every nationality you could think of in the city of Newark. But from neighborhood to neighborhood, and we talk about parity, even if I'm going to a Bravo, my perception of what that is shifts, because maybe even just the signage, I just what is the conditions inside the store? And so I think that as we're talking about parity and we're moving around, it can be the product could be reflective of the community, but the standards have to be at the same level across the board.
Yeah.
Exactly. I want to build on something that Roger actually demonstrated in this 20-minute slide, right? And when we talk about this type of equitable growth, going back again to saying, if it's not there, it is not equitable. And one of the things he talked about is, centers for employment. And now, Roger, you're talking about it's an opportunity for entrepreneurship. And I like to say, if you look at planning, it does use this element of economic development. And sometimes thinking to scale, get us to the economic development we need for our neighborhoods, right? Something as simple as this. One of the conversations that is not as amplified in the city is about a growing population of pets. Everywhere you look, people have a dog. But everywhere I look, I don't see a veterinary store. I don't see a puppy grooming store. I don't see the type of things that a pet owner invest in. Now, think about if you're a Brittany at Puppy Fluffy Paws, and you decide in every neighborhood you're opening a pet grooming service. A pet grooming service is employing 7 to 10 people on any given day, right? And it's creating a type of micro employment opportunity. And really and truly, if we use this example and say, and then there's a coffee shop, and then there's a haberdashery, and then there's a cobbler, and then there's a dry cleaner. You see, if you balloon the employment, what you're really doing, you're employing the neighborhood. And through that employment, you get to better party. Because now people have the economic tool for mobility to make sure that their neighborhoods are not only stabilized, and they're stabilized there, but there's growth. So it's important that we think about it on the economy of scale, because really and truly, the American economy is a 6 to 7% economy of small businesses, right? We might think it's Amazon, but no, it's the coffee shop on Clinton Avenue, is the Saddam's ice cream on Bergen Street. It's these little businesses, a plethora of them, that gets us to where we need to be.
And Chris, my mantra, no closed storefronts, right?
Yes.
Every storefront needs to be occupied.
Yes.
There's a Norker with a business idea, ready
Mm-hmm.
to be the next Amazon, ready to be the next Audible. Let's let it get it going in our own backyard. Anthony, you talked earlier about cluster-based economies, economics, and for me, when I think about all this talk about equity and parity, and I just want it to work. Tell me what are some of the things that we can do to make sure all of this stuff we're talking about actually works?
Wow, yeah. Earlier, I defined clustered based economic development, but according to the Metropolitan Policy Program with Brookings Institute, the most successful cluster initiatives have 5 traits. 1, they focus on establishing a robust ecosystem, not a quick job gains. 2, industry driven, universally fueled, and government funded is key. 3, placing a collective big bet on a unique opportunity, like the connectivity of Lincoln Park to Clinton Hill. Even the whole idea of arts and culture, having this cultural mosaic running up and down that Green Mile. 4, championing by passionate, dedicated leaders that are invaluable to shepherding each successful cluster initiative. And 5, anchored by a physical center, like the park itself. The park is connecting both of these communities. So those, based upon the Brookings report, those are the 5 key elements that are really needed when you think about cluster-based economic development in communities like ours.
So I want to ask our guests a little bit about those 5 traits in terms of, as you think about the city of Newark and how we can move this work forward, do you feel like we have those pieces in place? I mean, you've got Anthony and I, we're both here, we're champions, we're passionate about it. We certainly have the built environment, like you talked about, Chris, some of the assets that we can lean on to really anchor this. But where are those other elements, and what can we do to sort of build that out a little more robustly?
Kateem, I think we have all of those elements, right? And we have it at a particular scale in a particular geography. And I think one of the things we really need to do is really bring those assets to the forefront. I think often when you listen to how Newark is talked about and described, sometimes even us as Newarkers tend to use the wrong vocabulary, and we're not using the type of vocabulary to boost our city, to highlight those strengths, right? I think if we start having some more of these honest conversations amongst our neighbors and colleagues, we can point each other to those directions and actually arm each other with the tools to strengthen them, balloon them up to a scale where it's beneficial to our entire city, right? Look at the incredible work you're doing up there in Clinton Hill. 2 weeks ago when I saw you, you showed me the most magnificent pre-K center, right? Like, I wish I was a 3-year-old being enrolled in that state-of-the-art place. Guess what? If you're not from the South Ward, more so if you don't go down Hawthorne Avenue and you live in my neighborhood of the West Side, you would never think this thing exists. But it does. And it's beautiful, right? And it's world class in a sense. So how do we ensure that Newarkers know that in our city are these assets, right? And go explore these assets, boost these assets, and support these assets. I think it's more about Newarkers coming outside and celebrating Newark.
Yeah. I loved it, Chris, when you said earlier that, the way you're thinking about the 360 master plan is really an acknowledgement that residents know what they want in terms of the future of the city. And it's your job as a planner to really listen and try to articulate that from a planner's perspective that then gets codified in this master plan. I also was hoping that you were going to respond to Anthony's second point about, this kind of work needs to be government funded. Like, there has to be, the sort of robust partnerships with our university, because we're a town and gown city, and we got a robust business community here too, and we need all of those pieces sort of lined up behind this work at the neighborhood level as well. So, Anthony, this was our first. of many
Yeah.
conversations to come to imagine what this Green Mile can be. We talked about a number of things, from connecting all the plans that exist, looking at the 20-minute city, and even as we kind of drilled down on Lincoln Park and Clinton Hill, we talked about sustainable transportation. We talked about affordable housing, rent to ownership opportunities, helping sort of single puppies, as they grow with their families, look to neighborhoods like Clinton Hill as a place where they can plant roots. The need for more vibrant nightlife and arts and culture, sort of bridging off of what we already have, and local businesses to really occupy this commercial corridor around Clinton Avenue that we're trying to reimagine as the Green Miracle Mile. I feel like we can get there.
I think we can also. And Chris, we're counting on you. You know that. You and Roger, we're counting on you because we got a few more months left to this neighborhood plan. And we want to make sure that you're thinking about, that we're thinking about the including the connectivities to these neighborhoods. Roger mentioned it about the satellites, like having some of these businesses, maybe that particularly are downtown, and universities having satellites in our community. And I have one more question from our community that I really would like to answer. Well, two. We have Dr. Bryant and also Warren with another question. I'm gonna start with Dr. Bryant. She said, "There's amazing programs available in Newark. We have to find a way to really inform the residents of all these great opportunities that are here. And how are we communicating these amazing things that's happening in our community and not in a siloed experience?"
But I think this is one of those forums, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny enough that this was happening in one of those conversations, in one of those forums. And I think the hard part, and that's a really hard question to answer, right? Because who wants to know will always know. The inquisitive mind wants to know, they will always go seeking. But going back to Kateem's point, I think, yes, government has a bigger role to play. But I think when we think about government's role in all of this, it really should start from a national conversation, because we're really going through a moment in American history where cities like Newark, we are at that tail end of some national policies that has really given us these type of results. And I think we need to go back to that national conversation that course corrects some of these injustices, right? When I think about planning as a tool, I like to say planning is a very destructive tool, and it can be a very community healing tool. And there are certain aspects to Newark that is a result of that racist tool. Think about the highways that just cut off grandmas from grandchildren, neighborhoods from each other, industry from industry, right? In a sense, creating a kind of web that prevents access to the type of jobs or training you will need for that economic equity and parity. So it's, in a sense, even forcing this conversation to a very national level, because that's where the money's coming from, if you think about it, right? And to ensure that cities like Newark get their fair share, get the type of dollars we need to really reknit our communities, because it will take dollars. And I think if you, kudos to the mayor, if you hear how he speaks about Newark and champion us nationally, you see that type of money coming in to make sure that we just don't plan our neighborhoods, but we get the type of funding needed to build out our neighborhoods in a way that is representative of how we would like to live in our cities.
Yes, and lastly, before we close out, having our boots to the ground, we have, there was a question up here around a lot of the housing that's being, I lost the question, but it was right here. A lot of this housing that's being developed. Oh yeah, so what's happening is that when we think of controlling the narrative and trying to have an equitable environment, and that parity is essential, but there's currently concern in the community that the primary focus in development is on multi-use apartment buildings, and other elements that were amazingly highlighted in a 20-minute plan are receiving minimal attention. How do you suggest that we address these concerns?
Well, I think we need more access to more types of housing. There needs to be a broad range for opportunities on multiple levels. And as we work with developers, I think we have to build the kind of partnerships to provide the housing people need. I think we have to match up the need with assets. So on the ground, I think we have to do the hard work of knowing what the needs are and then finding the resources, right? And those resources could be our people investing in the redevelopment of a property that needs to be renovated, and that would help us. Some of it may be incremental, some of it may be big picture infrastructural support on the national level, but we know we have to start in the community, and that's where you guys are, because we have to make sure whatever we do matches up with that need. I just think diversity of housing type is a really important part of it. Affordability is a crisis. So we've got to really change the way we do things, and we've got to find mechanisms for home ownership, as well.
And Roger, I would just want to add quickly to that. And I think one of the ways in which we get to those typologies you're talking about, and typologies to neighborhood scale, again comes back to this type of new conversation we need to force in our neighborhoods. So I would think about, oftentimes we go into neighborhoods and we don't want to change the milieu of that space. But yet when we bring conversations in those exact spaces about accessory dwelling units, we get this quick pushback. And, when we understand accessory dwelling units is about density at the exact scale that exists. What we're saying is we go into some of these neighborhoods and we know there's a couple that is living in a 5,000 square foot home. We do the type of renovations on the inside to allow 2 more families to live there. It does nothing to the neighborhood in terms of that home being destroyed. What it does is say we are willing to welcome new people here. And in a sense, creating these accessory dwelling units allow for stability of that couple that might be on a fixed income, and then giving someone another opportunity to experience living in a different way. So I think it goes back to that collective conversation that we really need to be firm about, in a sense that we're not here to destroy, but we're here to create, but create in a way that is respectful at a particular scale.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, I'm so excited about this conversation. This can go on and on, but I realized that, Kateem, we have to invite these guests back because this is one of the conversations that's going to grow and grow, particularly after the master plan is finished, and now we're looking at the implementation of the master plan and how the community can see short-term and long-term things happening so they can see the success of the plan. So I'm very, very excited about participating with this. And I want to thank our guest today, Dr. Christopher A. Watson, our city planner, City of Newark friend. Chris Watson. My buddy, my friend, and, we're in this together. And Roger, I'm so excited to be working with you again.
Yes,
we've
great.
been at this for a long time. Roger, Associate AIA, Lead Green Associate and Design Director and Principal at Gensler. I just wanted to say thank you to both of you for joining us as our guests.
Yeah. And, in conjunction with this live stream discussion today, we're going to be launching a series of community dialogues and surveys to really capture the input of residents in both Lincoln Park and the Clinton Hill neighborhood as we reimagine what this sort of Clinton Avenue corridor from Lincoln Park to Clinton Hill could be. And so, as Anthony stated, now is your time for your voice to be heard. First and foremost, if you haven't gotten involved with the master planning process, the 360 master planning process, please go to the city's website so that you can sign up and get notices so that you can be in those conversations. And look out for updates from both Lincoln Park and Clinton Hill Community Action on more opportunities like this for us to talk about the great Green Mile in Clinton Hill and Lincoln Park.
Yes, and you can look on the screen and you can see how to follow us. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram for Lincoln Park. And I may have missed a slide that fast, but I'm sure that the Clinton Hill slide was put up there, your social media and how to be in touch with Clinton Hill. And if you're a resident of Lincoln Park and you can prove it, join our Friends of Lincoln Park Community Advocacy Group. That group is on fire, and they're really hard working to really make an impact in Lincoln Park. I'd like to say thank you to Clinton Hill Community Action. Kateem, I love you, brother. I'm so glad we finally got this opportunity, to make this happen and continue to do the work that we do together. The city of Newark, with a special thanks to Chris Watson, and also to Gensler, to Roger Smith. And also remember, humans, be kind. Do not mass shame. Let's not make our fellow humans feel uncomfortable. There are people who are feeling unsure and have underlying issues. So although we will see each other outside, especially in Lincoln Park for our upcoming 15th anniversary of the Lincoln Park Music Festival this summer, if you're not vaccinated, please get vaxxed. It only takes one infected person to start a pandemic. So be kind. Good night.